All right, I want to return to a couple of problems that we had with product and quotient rule that led us to having negative exponents. So let's return to our first one here with a negative exponent of 2 in the numerator. That was not simplified. So remember, the negative exponent in the numerator tells us that it's not where it belongs. So we're going to copy down the 1 in the numerator so that we don't lose the numerator. We're going to copy down an 8 in the denominator, and we're going to move this b squared down to the denominator. And now it's simplified. So now we can say it's done. Okay, now moving along to our next example that we had that we said was not simplified. Again, I'm going to copy the a squared in the numerator and the 2 in the denominator, and the b to the negative 1 tells us it's not where it belongs. So I'm going to move that b down into the denominator, and now I see that it's simplified. So one last thing that I want to talk to us about, and that is the idea of a confusion that we can sometimes come across. I want to make sure that you know that a negative number is not the same as a negative exponent. This one on the left says the opposite of a, and the one on the right says the reciprocal of a. And the opposite of a and the reciprocal of a are two different things. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the power rule of exponents. The power rule of exponents has three different manifestations. There's a power to a power, a product to a power, and a quotient to a power. Now the power to the power says that we're going to take this a to the r and we're going to multiply it by itself s times. So what we see is a to the r repeatedly multiplied s times. Now what that means is that we have an r plus an r plus an r plus an r, and an r plus an r plus an r is going to be the repeated addition, which is multiplication. So that means that what we do is r times s. So in other words, when we have a power to a power, we're multiplying the exponents. And that's just an extension of the power product rule. Now, when we have a product to a power, what happens is each of the things inside become to that power, or the exponents on each of these things multiply, right? 1 is the exponent there, so 1 times s, and 1 is the exponent on the b, so 1 times s for the b. And in other words, we get a to the s power and b to the s power. When we have a quotient, it's the exact same thing, the numerator thing to the power and the denominator thing to the power. And if we have these two powers, the powers multiply in the denominator as well. So let's do a few problems to practice that. So we have a cubed to the second power. So what we're doing is we're multiplying those powers. A 3 times 2, which is 6, and that's what our final answer is. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. It's a monomial to a power. So this is going to get squared, this is going to get squared, and this is going to get squared, which means multiply the exponents. So 10 squared, which is 100, x squared, which is just x squared, and then y to the 4th squared, which is 4 times 2, which is 8. Now a lot of students will get the x and the y taken care of, but what they'll miss out on is the 10. So don't forget, even the numbers get there. Now this next one's a little bit complicated. We have a negative under here, so I'm going to write this as a negative 1 times 7 to the 5th power. So I'm going to square a negative 1. Well, that means a negative 1 times a negative 1, right? So that's going to give me a positive number. And then 7 to the 5th, I'm going to write 7 to the 2 times 5, which is 7 to the 10th power. And that's where I'm going to leave that. That's one of those big exponents again. And then our next one, this one says a negative 1 being cubed, right? So this is a negative 1 times a negative 1 times a negative 1. So a negative, oops, that didn't look right, negative 1 times a negative 1 times a negative 1, which is going to give me a negative 1. So that's going to be a negative 1 times a cubed, and then 5 cubed, which is 125, and then b cubed. And so that's what our final answer is going to look like in this one. Be careful with those negatives. All right, next video you're going to do